Chapter 1. The Fall. The bitter December wind cut through Robert Mitchell's face like invisible razors as he climbed the final steps of the emergency stairway in the Willis Tower, Chicago's tallest building. His hands trembled, not just from the cold, but from the weight of the decision he carried like a stone in his chest. At 42 years old, Robert had reached the end of the line. 3 months earlier, his life was different. He had a house in Naperville, a wife named Sarah, who had loved him for 15 years, and 2 children. Michael, 12 years old and obsessed with basketball, and Emma, 8 years old, who drew unicorns in every notebook. Robert worked as a manager at a Ford dealership and made good money. They weren't rich, but they had enough to be happy. Everything changed when he discovered online gambling. It started innocently enough with a $10 bet on a Bulls game. He won $50 and felt a euphoria he hadn't experienced in years. What's the harm? He thought. It's just for fun. But the fun turned into obsession. Slot games, online poker, sports betting, daily fantasy. Robert dove headfirst into this world of flashing lights and empty promises. Within months, he'd lost all the family's savings. Then he took out personal loans. When that wasn't enough, he started using credit cards for cash advances. Sarah found out when the bank called to inform them their account was $15,000 overdrawn. "Robert, what did you do with our money?" she asked, holding the bank statements with shaking hands. The brown eyes he'd fallen in love with were filled with tears and disappointment. "Sarah, I can explain. It was just a rough patch. I'm gonna win it all back. I've got a new strategy. A sure bet that's gonna—" "No!" she screamed, slamming her hand on the kitchen table. "I don't want to hear any more lies. You're addicted. Robert, you destroyed us!" The arguments became constant. Michael stopped looking his father in the eye, and Emma started wetting the bed again. Sarah tried to help, found support groups, therapists, tried to control their finances. But Robert always found a way to gamble in secret. He sold household items, borrowed money from neighbors with made-up excuses, even took money from the collection plate at their church. The end came when he lost the house. Sarah had put up their home as collateral for a loan Robert took without her knowledge, forging her signature. When he couldn't pay, the bank foreclosed. 20 years building this family, Robert," Sarah said on the day they were evicted. 20 years for you to destroy it all in 6 months. I can't do this anymore. The kids can't do this anymore." She packed the few things they had left and went to her mother's place in Wisconsin. Robert was left alone, living in a studio apartment, downtown. Fired from the dealership for cause, after they discovered he was using the company's computer system to place bets during work hours. Chapter 2. The First Encounter. It was on a rainy Tuesday in November that Robert first saw the homeless man. He was leaving Chase Bank, where he'd tried for another loan and been denied. His hair was disheveled, his beard unshaven for a week, and his clothes reeked of someone who hadn't showered in days. On the sidewalk in front of the bank, sitting on a piece of wet cardboard, was an elderly man. He looked about 60, with completely white hair and beard, but his eyes were a piercing blue that seemed to see into people's souls. He wore simple, worn clothes, a faded flannel shirt, jeans with holes in the knees, and a wool coat that had seen better days. What caught Robert's attention most was the sign the man held, made of cardboard, with carefully handwritten letters. "God loves you, spare change, spare blessing." "Got some change, brother?" asked the homeless man, extending a weathered hand. His voice was gentle, almost musical, contrasting with his raggedy appearance. Robert looked away and quickened his pace. "Don't have anything," he muttered, lying. He had a few bucks in his pocket, but his mind was already calculating how to turn them into a bet. The homeless man didn't insist, just smiled with a serenity that made Robert uncomfortable. There was something in that smile that seemed to say, "I understand your pain." 2 blocks later, Robert entered a betting parlor and lost his last $15 on online roulette. Chapter 3. Random Encounters. In the following weeks, Robert started noticing that the homeless man appeared in strange places. At the unemployment office, where he was trying to get benefits. Outside the grocery store, where he bought only essentials with the few dollars he made doing odd jobs. In front of St. Patrick's Cathedral, where he sometimes went to try to pray, but ended up just sitting in the back pews, lost in self-destructive thoughts. Each time, the man held a different sign. Jesus wants to talk to you. God has a plan for your life. Don't give up. He didn't give up on you. Hope is the last heart to die. Robert always avoided eye contact. There was something disturbing about those blue eyes, a peace he couldn't understand. How could someone living on the streets have such serenity? How could someone who had nothing smile like that? It's just coincidence, Robert told himself. Chicago's big, but you run into the same people sometimes. But deep down, he knew there was something more. The homeless man always appeared at moments when Robert felt most desperate. After a phone argument with Sarah, who refused to let him see the kids. After being humiliated by a former co-worker who found him delivering food to make a few bucks. After staying up all night, betting on his phone until the last cent he'd earned that day was gone. Chapter 4. Absolute Desperation. December arrived, bringing with it the weight of the holiday season. Robert knew Michael and Emma would be opening presents on Christmas, but he wouldn't be there. Sarah had been clear. Until he got treatment, there would be no reconciliation. Daddy turned into a monster, he heard Emma say on the phone when he called his mother-in-law's house. The girl didn't know he was listening, but her words cut through him like knives. He's always angry and saying bad words. Mommy cries every night. Robert hung up the phone and looked around his studio apartment. The peeling walls, the smell of mold, the mattress on the floor, the electricity and water bills overdue for 2 weeks. He had nothing left. He'd sold everything of value. The watch Sarah gave him for their anniversary, the gold chain that was his father's inheritance, even his wedding ring. That night, lying in the dark, Robert made a decision. He couldn't live with the pain of having destroyed his family anymore. He couldn't look in the mirror anymore and see what he'd become. He couldn't bear the emptiness he felt in his chest every morning when he woke up. He was going to end it all. He researched online which was the tallest building in the city. The Willis Tower had 108 floors. From the observation deck, there would be no surviving. It would be quick. It would be final. Chapter 5. The Last Walk. Robert decided he would do it on Christmas Eve. There was a poetic symbolism to it. While families gathered to celebrate the birth of Jesus, he would leave this world. He spent the morning walking through Chicago's streets, seeing the Christmas decorations, the colorful shop windows, kids excited about Christmas being so close. All of this only increased his feeling of isolation. He was a ghost walking among the living. Around noon, he stopped in front of the house where he'd lived with Sarah and the kids. A new family had already moved in. There were toys scattered in the yard he himself had planted. A kid's bike leaning against the garage where his car used to be. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he murmured, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry, Michael. I'm sorry, Emma. Daddy's a failure." That's when he heard the familiar voice. "Spare change for a broken heart, brother." Robert turned around, and there was the homeless man, sitting in the shade of a tree on the opposite sidewalk. This time, his sign read, "God knows your pain." For a moment, Robert considered approaching him. But what would he say? That he was planning to kill himself? That he'd destroyed everything he loved because of a stupid addiction? That he didn't deserve to live? He turned his back and kept walking. Chapter 6. The Climb. At 5 p.m., Robert arrived at the Willis Tower. It was a commercial building downtown with law offices, medical clinics, and accounting firms. The security guard was distracted with his phone, and Robert managed to get in unnoticed. He climbed 108 floors via the emergency stairwell. His legs were shaking, not from physical exertion, but from the magnitude of what he was about to do. With each floor he climbed, he felt like he was saying goodbye to life. On the 10th floor, he remembered when Michael was born, and he held him for the first time. On the 20th floor, he recalled the day Emma said "Daddy" for the first time. When he reached the observation deck, the sun was setting on the horizon. The city of Chicago stretched out at his feet, lights beginning to twinkle in the twilight. The wind was strong up there, and Robert had to hold onto the railing to keep his balance. He looked down. It was very high enough. He took a deep breath and climbed onto the railing. His legs dangled in the void. One step forward and it would all be over. The pain, the shame, the guilt, the emptiness, everything. Sarah will be able to rebuild her life, he thought. She's young, beautiful, smart. She'll find someone better. The kids will grow up without an addicted father. They'll have a chance. He closed his eyes and prepared to take the final step. Chapter 7. The Angel in Disguise. Beautiful view, isn't it? Robert opened his eyes, startled. There, sitting calmly on the railing beside him, was the white-haired homeless man. There was no elevator that went up there, and Robert was certain no one was on the observation deck when he arrived. How did you get up here?" Robert stammered without getting down from the railing. The man smiled, the same serene smile as always. "Same way you did, son. I came to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Leave me alone." "Oh, but there is. There's a lot to talk about." The homeless man looked toward the horizon. "You know, I've seen many people come up here with the same intentions as you. They all thought there was nothing left to live for." Robert looked at him suspiciously. "And what did you do? Preach at them?" "No. I listened. All of them had stories similar to yours. Losses, addictions, deep pain. All of them thought they were a burden to their families. And they are. I am. Look what I did to my family." The homeless man turned to Robert, and for the first time, the desperate man looked directly into the stranger's blue eyes. There was a depth there he couldn't explain, as if those eyes had seen all the pain in the world, but also all the joy. "Robert Mitchell," said the homeless man, and Robert felt a chill run up his spine. He hadn't told this man his name. "Do you really think your story ends here?" Chapter 8. The Life-Changing Conversation. "How do you know my name?" Robert asked, his voice trembling. "I know many things about you, Robert. I know you used to build dollhouses for Emma on Sunday mornings. I know you taught Michael to shoot hoops in the driveway after work. I know you took Sarah country dancing at the club every Saturday night." Tears began streaming down Robert's face. "That was before I became a monster. Before I destroyed everything. You're not a monster, son. You're a sick man who needs healing. There's a huge difference between those two things. There's no healing for me anymore. I've tried to stop gambling 1,000 times. I always go back. It's stronger than me." The homeless man got up from the railing and extended his hand to Robert. "Come down from there. Let's talk properly." "No, I won't come down. You don't understand. I have nothing left. I lost my house, my family, my job, my dignity. There's nothing left. You're left. Your soul is left. The possibility of rebuilding is left. You're crazy. You can't rebuild what I destroyed." The homeless man moved closer, and Robert could feel a strange peace emanating from this man. "Robert, if you jump from here, God won't be able to do in your life what He wants to do. He has plans for you, bigger plans than you can imagine." "What plans? What God? If God existed, He wouldn't have." "Let me get to this point. He gave you free will. Let you choose. Just like now, He's letting you choose again. You can choose death, or you can choose to trust that He's not finished with your life's story yet." Robert shook his head. "I don't believe in God anymore. Not after everything I've done. But he still believes in you. Chapter 9. The mysterious address. The silence stretched for long minutes. Robert stayed on the railing, but couldn't look down anymore. The homeless man's eyes were magnetic, and he felt compelled not to look away. You have family, Robert. You have children who need their father, even if that father is imperfect. Michael is starting to hang out with the wrong crowd because he's angry that you abandoned them. Emma wets the bed every night because she has nightmares where you disappear forever. How do you know this? Robert whispered. I know because it's my job to know. It's my job to care for lost children. The homeless man pulled a crumpled paper from his shirt pocket. I want you to do something for me. I want you to go to this address tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Robert took the paper. It was an address in Pilsen, a neighborhood he knew well. What's there? Go and find out. Promise me you will. What if I don't want to go? Then you come back here and do what you were planning to do. I won't try to stop you a second time, but give me this chance. 24 hours. That's all I'm asking. Robert looked at the paper, then at the man. There was something in the sincerity of those blue eyes that made him want to believe. Why do you care about me? You don't even know. Me. I've known you for a long time, Robert. Much longer than you imagine. Slowly, Robert climbed down from the railing. His legs shook so much he almost fell. The homeless man steadied him with surprising strength for someone of his frail appearance. Thank you, Robert murmured. Don't thank me yet. Thank me tomorrow night, when you understand what God has prepared for you. Chapter 10. The Church in Pilsen. Robert spent the night awake, staring at the paper with the address 1,000 times. He thought about throwing it away and going back to the building. 1,000 times he wondered if he was going crazy, believing the words of some crazy homeless man. But there was something about those blue eyes that wouldn't leave his mind. The next morning, he showered, put on his best clothes, which weren't much, and took the L to Pilsen. The address led him to a small evangelical church, New Life Restoration Church. Of course, thought Robert. The homeless guy wants me to get saved. Another religious nut. He stood in front of the church for over an hour, deciding whether to go in or not. Finally, at 11:15, he pushed open the wooden door. The interior was simple. Wooden pews, a small pulpit, white walls with a few pictures of Jesus. There were about 20 people sitting in the pews, and a man of approximately 50 was speaking at the pulpit. And that's why God allows us to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, the pastor was saying. Not to destroy us, but to transform us. Not to condemn us, but to prepare us for something greater. Robert sat in the last pew, trying not to draw attention. But his wrinkled clothes and cigarette smell made him stand out in that environment. We have a visitor with us today, said the pastor, smiling at Robert. Welcome, brother. What's your name? Robert, he replied, uncomfortable with the attention. Robert, God didn't bring you here by accident. He has something to tell you today. Chapter 11. The testimony that changed everything. After the sermon, the pastor asked people to share their testimonies. A middle-aged woman stood up. My name is Maria, and I want to tell how God freed me from gambling addiction. Robert felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. 2 years ago, I lost everything because of slot machines and online betting, Maria continued. I lost my house, almost lost my family, hit rock bottom. I tried to kill myself 3 times. Every word Maria spoke echoed in Robert's soul. It was like she was telling his own story. But God wasn't finished with me. He brought me to this church through an angel disguised as a homeless man. An elderly man with white hair who gave me an address written on a piece of paper. Robert almost fell off his chair, his eyes filled with tears. Today I work here at the church, helping other people who go through what I went through. I have a new home, my family forgave me, and I discovered my purpose in life. helping addicts find healing in Jesus. When Maria finished speaking, the pastor approached Robert. "Brother, would you like to give your life to Jesus today?" Robert couldn't contain his tears anymore. There, in that small church, in front of those simple people, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "Yes," he whispered. "I want to." Chapter 12. The first day of New Life. What happened that morning at New Life Restoration Church was more than a religious conversion. It was a rebirth. Robert knelt before the altar, and for the first time in months, prayed for real. He didn't ask for money, didn't ask for luck in games. He asked for forgiveness. He asked for healing. He asked for a new chance. Pastor Martinez, the church leader, was a wise man who had helped dozens of addicts over the years. He didn't make empty promises to Robert. He explained that the path would be difficult, that there would be relapses, that restoring his family would take time. Recovery from addiction is a process, Robert. It's not an instant miracle, but with God, with support, with determination, it's possible. That same day, Robert signed up for a gambling addiction support group that met at the church. He met other people with similar stories. A lawyer who lost his practice betting on stocks, a teacher who spent her entire mother's inheritance at online casinos, a 22-year-old who owed $50,000 to loan sharks. For the first time in months, Robert didn't feel alone. Pastor Martinez also helped him find work. One of the church members, Mr. Garcia, had a small used car lot and needed someone to help with sales and administration. The salary was low, but it was a fresh start. "I can't pay much," said Mr. Garcia, "but I can teach you the business. If you dedicate yourself in a year, you could be making good money." Chapter 13. The Rebuilding. The first few months were the hardest. Robert had several relapses. Once, he took all the money from his first paycheck and lost it at a betting parlor. He came home crying, convinced he would never be able to break free from the addiction. But Pastor Martinez was there. Maria was there. The support group was there. No one condemned him. Everyone understood that recovery was a journey with ups and downs. "Addiction is a disease," Pastor Martinez explained. "And we treat disease, we don't condemn it." Gradually, Robert began rebuilding his life. He got a small but clean apartment. He paid off his debts little by little. More importantly, he started attending individual and group therapy. Mr. Garcia was impressed with Robert's dedication. Within 6 months, he was selling more cars than experienced salespeople. He had a natural gift for talking to people, for understanding their needs. "Robert, have you ever thought about having your own business?" Mr. Garcia asked one day. That's when Robert realized he had found more than a job. He had found his calling. Chapter 14. The Return of Family. 1 year after that day at the church, Robert finally had the courage to call Sarah, not to ask for forgiveness for the 1,000th time, but to show that he had truly changed. "Sarah, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I'd like you to see who I've become." Sarah resisted at first. She had been deeply hurt and didn't want to go through another disappointment. But Pastor Martinez talked to her, showed her the work Robert was doing at the church, his dedication to the support group. "He's different, Mrs. Mitchell. I'm not telling you to get back together with him. I'm telling you to give him a chance to show he's changed." Michael and Emma also resisted, especially Michael, who had developed a lot of anger toward his father. But Robert didn't give up. He started visiting them once a week, always accompanied by Pastor Martinez or Sarah. He didn't talk about the past. He didn't ask for forgiveness obsessively. He was simply present. He played with Emma, talked about basketball with Michael, helped with homework. Gradually, the children began to realize that this man was different from the father who had abandoned them. This father had peace in his eyes. This father wasn't always nervous, always worried about bets. Chapter 15. The Complete Miracle. 2 years after that night at the Willis Tower, Robert's life was completely transformed. He had opened his own used car dealership, Mitchell Motors, which prospered thanks to his honesty and dedication. Sarah had agreed to reconcile with him. It wasn't easy, and they went to couples therapy for months before moving back in together. But the love that had united them 15 years earlier was still there, buried under layers of pain, but alive. Michael had become a responsible young man and frequently helped his father at the dealership on weekends. Emma, now 11 years old, went back to drawing unicorns in her notebooks, but this time the unicorns had complete and happy families. Robert had also discovered his ministerial calling. Pastor Martinez invited him to be an associate pastor, specializing in helping gambling addicts. Every Sunday he gave testimony at church, telling his story of transformation. "God brought me to rock bottom," he would say from the pulpit, "not to destroy me, but to show me that he could lift me up from any depth." It was on one of those Sunday mornings, while preparing to preach, that Robert remembered the white-haired, homeless man. In the 2 years that had passed since that night on the observation deck, he had never seen the man again. He decided to look for him. He wanted to thank him personally. He spent weeks visiting all the places where he used to see him, in front of Chase Bank, outside the grocery store, the steps of St. Patrick's Cathedral. He asked other homeless people, shop owners, anyone who might have seen an elderly homeless man with white hair. Nobody knew him. Nobody had ever seen anyone matching that description. That's when Robert understood. That Sunday morning, as he looked at the congregation and prepared to give his testimony, it finally clicked. The blue eyes that seemed to see into souls, the inexplicable peace, the supernatural knowledge about his life, the appearances at crucial moments, the fact that no one else had seen him. Robert smiled, tears streaming down his face. He looked up and whispered, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for not giving up on me." And in that moment, he knew with absolute certainty that God really did have a plan for his life. A plan that included the fall, but also included redemption. A plan that included pain, but culminated in joy. A plan that proved it's never too late to start over, never too late to be forgiven, never too late to discover we are loved unconditionally. Robert Mitchell stepped up to the pulpit that morning as a completely transformed man. And when he finished telling his story, there wasn't a dry eye in the congregation, because everyone understood that if God could transform Robert's life, he could transform any life. After all, he never gives up on his children, never.